Rain lashed the windows of Blackthorn Manor when Lord Edric Vale returned from the city, his carriage stopping beneath the stone archway just before midnight. At 34, he possessed everything other men envied: an ancient title, vast estates, and a fortune large enough to silence almost any accusation. Yet inside the manor, he lived like a prisoner. For 7 years, whispers had followed him. Edric had been married once. The marriage had ended without an heir, and his former wife had publicly declared that the Duke was incapable of giving her children. Society had turned the humiliation into entertainment. Behind jeweled fans and polite smiles, people called him defective, cursed, even less than a man. Edric had stopped defending himself. He stopped attending gatherings, dismissed invitations, and spent his evenings alone in the library, surrounded by books he rarely read. His greatest torment was not the possibility that the rumors were true. It was that he no longer remembered who he had been before believing them. Then Mara Bell arrived. She was a maid with no noble blood, no influential family, and no patience for people who mistreated those beneath them. On her first morning at Blackthorn, she found Edric sitting before an untouched breakfast. "You should eat," she said. His eyes lifted slowly. "Do you always give orders to your employer?" "Only when he looks determined to starve." He almost smiled. Almost. Before he could answer, the housekeeper stormed into the room. She accused Mara of neglecting her duties and seized her roughly by the arm. Edric's expression changed. "Let her go." The housekeeper released Mara immediately. Mara lowered her gaze, expecting the Duke to reprimand her next. Instead, he said quietly, "You were right about breakfast." That small exchange became the beginning of something neither understood. Mara soon noticed what others ignored. Edric was not cruel. He was wounded. He avoided mirrors, children, celebrations, and every conversation about the future. Whenever someone mentioned heirs, his entire manner hardened. One stormy afternoon, Mara found him near the abandoned greenhouse, pale and struggling to breathe. She called for assistance. Nobody came. So she dragged him through the rain herself. When Edric awoke, he found Mara asleep beside his bed, her dress still damp and muddy from the rescue. "You carried me?" Her eyes opened. "I tried. You could have been hurt. So could you." He studied her in silence. No servant had ever spoken to him that way. That evening, Mara discovered something else. The medicine kept in the Duke's private cabinet bore a physician's seal that had been scratched away and replaced. Someone had been controlling what Edric took for years. She returned the bottle to its place before anyone noticed. But when she turned toward the door, she saw a shadow beneath it. Someone had been standing outside, and whoever it was had heard everything. Mara did not move until the shadow disappeared. She waited beside the door, listening to the retreating footsteps, then slipped the medicine bottle beneath her apron. She knew she should have gone directly to the Duke, but fear told her that whoever had been outside might still be watching. By dawn, she had made her decision. She carried the bottle to Edric. He was already awake, standing before the fireplace with one hand pressed against his temple. "I found this in your cabinet," Mara said. His expression hardened. "You searched my room?" "No. I found it where anyone could have found it." He examined the bottle, then looked at her. "What is wrong with it?" "I don't know. But the seal has been tampered with." Edric went still. 4 years, he had trusted the physicians appointed by his family. If the medicine had been altered, then his suffering had not been an accident. "Who has access to my cabinet?" "Your physician, the housekeeper, and Lord Corvin Hale." Edric's jaw tightened. Corvin had been his father's closest adviser and had managed the estate during Edric's youth. He was also the man who had urged Edric to accept his supposed condition without seeking another opinion. Before they could say more, the door opened. Corvin entered without knocking. His eyes settled immediately on the bottle in Edric's hand. For the briefest moment, fear crossed his face. Then it vanished. "You should be resting, Your Grace." Edric held up the bottle. "Tell me what this is." "Your medicine." Then why has the physician's seal been scratched away? Corvin smiled faintly. Old bottles are often damaged. Mara watched him carefully. You recognized it before His Grace said what it was. Silence filled the room. Corvin's face turned cold. You are a servant. Remember that. Mara lowered her eyes, but Edric stepped between them. She remembers her place better than most people in this house. Corvin left without another word. The moment the door closed, Edric whispered, You have made an enemy. I already had one. That afternoon, Edric secretly summoned a physician from the neighboring county, a man known for refusing aristocratic favors. The examination lasted nearly an hour. When the physician emerged, his face was grave. Your Grace, I cannot prove who altered your treatment, but I can tell you this, your condition may not be permanent. Edric stared at him. May not. There are signs that your body has been affected by prolonged medication. If that medication was unnecessary or improperly prepared, recovery may be possible. Hope frightened Edric more than despair ever had. He had spent 7 years teaching himself not to hope. That night, he found Mara alone in the kitchen, repairing a torn child's coat. You believed me, he said. She looked up. I believed you deserved the truth. He sat beside her. What if I never recover? Then you will still be Edric. The simplicity of her answer struck him harder than any physician's promise. He reached for her hand, but stopped before touching it. Mara noticed. Neither spoke. Then a crash sounded from upstairs. They rushed toward the library. The hidden compartment beneath Edric's desk stood open. The medicine bottle was gone. In its place lay a single folded note. Edric opened it. 4 words were written inside. Stop searching, or she dies. Edric read the note twice before folding it into his palm. Mara watched the color drain from his face. Whoever wrote this knows about you, she whispered. They know about you now. He immediately ordered the servants to remain inside the manor. Every gate was locked, every corridor searched, and every carriage watched. Yet the threat had already changed the house. Doors that once felt familiar now seemed like traps. Mara refused to leave his side. By midnight, Edric discovered that the threatening note had been written on paper bearing the crest of his own family. Only 3 people had access to it: himself, Corvin, and the family solicitor. Corvin was summoned. He arrived furious. You accuse me because a maid found a bottle? I accuse you because someone has spent 7 years destroying my life. Corvin's composure cracked. You were weak long before I became your advisor. Mara stepped forward. Then why are you frightened? Corvin stared at her with open hatred. Edric understood immediately. He ordered the guards to search Corvin's chambers. They found nothing. But as Corvin was escorted away, Mara noticed a torn piece of black cloth caught on the door latch. She recognized it from the stranger she had seen outside the library. Following the clue led them to the abandoned chapel beyond the manor grounds. Inside, they found a hidden room beneath the altar. Old medical records covered the walls. Edric's name appeared repeatedly. So did the name of his former physician. Mara picked up a ledger. Every payment made to the physician had come from Corvin. Edric stared at the pages, stunned. He paid him. A voice came from behind them. Yes. They turned. The physician stood in the doorway. He was older than Edric remembered, his face gaunt with years of fear. I thought Corvin would kill me if I spoke. Edric approached him. Tell me the truth. The physician lowered his head. Your condition was never hopeless. The medicine was deliberately altered to prevent recovery. Edric closed his eyes. 7 years. 7 years stolen by a lie. Then the physician looked toward Mara. And she is in greater danger than you are. Before anyone could respond, the chapel doors slammed shut. Smoke began pouring beneath them. Someone had set the building on fire. Mara coughed as flames spread across the wooden floor. Edric seized her hand. This way. They rushed toward the hidden passage, but a burning beam crashed down between them. Mara was trapped. Edric. He turned back without hesitation. The heat forced him to his knees, but he crawled beneath the smoke and reached her. "Take my hand. I can't move." "You can." He pulled her free just before the ceiling collapsed. They emerged into the cold night air, covered in ash. Mara looked at him, trembling. "You came back." There was never a choice. For a moment, neither moved. Then Mara placed her hand against his cheek. Edric covered it with his own. "I spent 7 years believing I had nothing left to lose," he whispered. "Then you arrived." Her eyes filled with tears. "You still have a future." Behind them, the chapel burned. But somewhere beyond the flames, a horse galloped toward the manor. The rider carried a sealed letter addressed to Edric. Inside was proof that Corvin had not acted alone, and the name at the bottom belonged to the one person Edric had trusted most. The rider's letter changed everything. Edric broke the seal with shaking fingers and read the final name. Lady Seraphine Vale. His mother. She had been dead for 11 years. Mara watched his expression collapse. "This is impossible." The letter explained that Seraphine had discovered Corvin's scheme shortly before her death. She had secretly arranged for another physician to investigate Edric's treatment, but she had died before the investigation could be completed. Her final warning had been hidden with the solicitor, who had apparently betrayed her and joined Corvin. Edric's grief turned to fury. "We have proof." Mara nodded. "Then we finish this." They returned to Blackthorn before dawn and confronted Corvin in the great hall. The physician stood beside them, trembling but determined to speak. Corvin initially denied everything. Then Edric placed the ledger on the table. "You paid my physician for 7 years." Corvin's face hardened. "You were never meant to discover it." The confession came without remorse. Corvin had manipulated Edric's medicine because he wanted control of the estate. A child would have ended his influence, so he had convinced Edric that fatherhood was impossible and ensured every physician repeated the lie. "You destroyed my life." "No," Corvin replied coldly. "I gave you a life I could control." Mara stepped forward. "You failed." Corvin reached for the pistol hidden beneath his coat. Before he could raise it, the guards seized him. For the first time in 7 years, Edric felt free. Months passed. With the false medicine removed and proper treatment begun, his health gradually returned. The rumors that had once humiliated him were replaced by another story. The Duke had survived a deliberate betrayal. Yet Edric cared less about society than about the woman who had stood beside him when he had nothing to hope for. One spring morning, he found Mara in the greenhouse where their story had begun. "I have something to ask you." She smiled. "Another order?" "No." He took her hand. "A choice." Mara's smile faded into surprise. "I cannot promise that the world will accept you easily," he said. "But I can promise that you will never again stand beneath anyone simply because they were born into a higher room." Her eyes filled with tears. "And what if I refuse?" "Then I will still protect your right to refuse." She laughed softly. "That is the most noble thing you've ever said." She accepted his proposal. Their wedding was small, but the entire village gathered outside the manor gates to celebrate. The former maid became the duchess, yet Mara insisted that the servants' quarters be renovated before the ballroom. Edric agreed. But the greatest surprise came months later. The physician who had treated Edric returned with unexpected news. His recovery was progressing better than anyone had predicted, and there was no reason to believe he could not have a family. Mara took his hand. For once, Edric did not fear the future. Then she placed his hand gently against her stomach. "I think," she whispered, "you should prepare for fatherhood." He stared at her in stunned silence. Then he laughed through tears. The Duke, once mocked for being unable to leave an heir, now stood beneath the same greenhouse roof where Mara had first rescued him, holding the woman who had rescued his heart. Their first child was born the following winter. And when Edric held his daughter for the first time, he understood the final truth. Mara had not changed everything because she had cured him. She had changed everything because she had taught him that his worth had never depended on what his body could give him. His real inheritance was not the title, the estate, or the bloodline. It was love. And Blackthorn Manor, once haunted by cruelty and shame, became a home filled with laughter, kindness, and the sound Edric had once believed he would never hear. His own child calling him father.